I will say, a lot of us really do hate to bring up the past, so to say, or to talk about very infamous incidents that have happened over the years. But to be honest, I think I have wanted to do this for a little while, so I figured, why not I jump on the whole thing too? And I will also actually have multiple videos, maybe actually a few, that some actually have not really brought up in the last couple of years that I actually really do want to touch on. One that I will keep secret and I will talk about at a later date, but I figured today I will go back and revisit one from 2015. And I think you probably, especially if you're a NASCAR fan, you know where I'm going with this. Today, I'm going to take some time out to talk about the infamous Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano incidents from that year. Let's go into a deep dive and let's talk about it then, shall we? So, the best place to start with this whole ordeal is the 2015 Hollywood Casino 400 at the Kansas Speedway. It was a battle between Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano for the race win. At this point, Joey Logano had already locked himself into the round of 8 at this point, while Matt Kenseth was pretty much for the most part on the brink of elimination after crashing out and finishing 42nd a week prior at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Throughout this race, it was Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano who were the two clear favorites to win this race. And with about 5 laps to go, going into turn 1, Matt Kenseth would throw an aggressive block on Logano, in which then prompted Logano to go ahead and turn Kenseth going into turn 1. This would then force Matt Kenseth to settle for a 14th place finish, while Joey Logano, on the other hand, would go on to win the race, and which would be his second consecutive in the following weeks. This then here would put Matt Kenseth on the brink of elimination in a season where this man had won 5 Cup Series races, 5 points paying events, and had also looked like a top championship contender for most of it. Of course, obviously, as you can already imagine, both of them had very differing sides to the whole ordeal. Matt Kenseth obviously was not happy with the way that Joey Logano raced him, and was not happy with the fact that he had gotten dumped late in the race, going for the race win, when he felt like he had really thrown it, which he really did, throw not only really an aggressive block, but a pretty much clean block where the 20 car was technically clear.
I was moving around the best I could. Joey was a lot tighter, a lot faster on a short run, but we were so much better in a long run. And I could still kind of get up the top and get around and get around him and catching 2-lap cars. And crazy so I was clear, and I pulled up in front of him, and he just lifted my tires off the ground and wrecked me.
What will you talk to Joey about in regards to this incident?
Oh, I won't talk to Joey. I don't have anything to talk to him about, really. So, you make decisions every day. You make decisions every minute behind the wheel. To me, strategically, that doesn't seem like such a great decision for him. But it's the one he made, and that's how he wanted to win. So I'm one of the only guys I think that haven't been into it yet with Joey, and I've always raced him with a ton of respect. I've actually been one of his biggest fans. Certainly not anymore, but I always was. So, it's a shame. I'm glad the car's not wrecked. We'll just go on Talladega and race him there.
On Joey Logano's standpoint, he was not happy with the fact that Matt Kenseth in his eyes had blocked him into the wall, as he had put it. Felt like he had gotten fenced twice, and it felt that it was more often than not rewarding to spin him going into the first corner.
We were racing each other really hard, and I felt like I got fenced twice down the straightaways, and he raced me hard, so I raced him hard back, and that's just that's hard racing. That's the way I race. If I get raced like that, I'll race the same way. That's just how I've always been, and it'll always be that way. So I just really couldn't be more proud of this team, though. To be sitting in such a great position going into Talladega makes us feel really, really good.
You have blocked some people from victory lane here today, including Matt. How do you feel about that, strategy-wise, going into round 3, the third race in this round?
The fact that we're the only team that can relax right now is going to pay big dividends when we get to Martinsville. Everyone else is a little bit nervous. Our goal is still to win the race, even though we were moved on to the next round. Our goal is still to win that race, and try to get some guys nervous for next week. That's the kind of the strategy of this chase, and to be able to do that today. Like I said, it's gonna be more proud. These guys they work so hard, and Todd Gordon, he's a freaking genius. So it's fun to drive his car.
Obviously, Matt disagrees with how this went down today. Did you consider it a good move?
Well, I didn't think it was a good move when I hit the wall. So, I'm sure we'll talk about it. And I just felt like, hey, I got raced hard, I got fenced twice, so I wasn't gonna put up with it.
So I guess I will say I'm going to talk about either side here on this one, and if you ask me how I feel about this one in general, to put it bluntly, I kind of really stand with more on Matt Kenseth's side on this point of view. I mean, I will defend Logano here, especially because the first to defend Joey, I will say, and I can understand being in his shoes, For one, you're the much faster car, and you feel like this guy's been holding me up, obviously he's blocking me, and kind of put me up next to the wall with only a couple laps to go, and I am much faster than him. And I will say, maybe, yeah, sure, kind of did deserve it because you were blocking a little bit, even though he, like I said, Kenseth was technically clear. And here's where I will clearly defend Matt Kenseth on this one. I mean, at the end of the day, Logano was a much faster car, like I said already, and he literally was having to do absolutely next to everything he needed to do to not only keep Logano behind him, but was also doing what he had to do to try to win the race, considering the fact that at this point, he was pretty much on the brink of elimination here. And after this only put him even further on the cut line heading into Talladega the following week. And not only that, a couple days later after this, to fuel the fire between the whole ordeal, the CEO at the time, Brian Franz, then jumps on SiriusXM radio and calls Logano's move quintessential NASCAR in his eyes, saying that it was pretty much necessary and it was a very bold and a very great move to put him on basically the brink of elimination, so to speak.
I thought that Joey Logano made a very smart decision in what he did because not only trying to win the race, which he said he wanted to do, and obviously he did, but the idea to late in that race to have an opportunity to put one of the top teams on the outside looking in to the next round, and Matt Kenseth has run so well. That's a smart thing to do. You got to give that team a lot of credit for thinking ahead. That's smart. This is the strategies that we all thought, were going to be different when you have this kind of format, but it does reward aggressive racing at the end of the day.
Which I don't understand. I mean, especially when you're the CEO, especially when you're the leader of the team, you can't say stuff like that. That's really, really dumb. And quite frankly, I definitely can only imagine that Matt Kenseth did not take kindly to any of those statements. He even stated a couple weeks later after the whole incident at the ordeal that he felt like he was pretty much condoned to do this and never even imagined he'd ever get suspended for going and settling the score on everything. But we will get to that in a little bit. We will get to that later. That will be a big reason for everything else later. But then afterwards, a week later, heading into Talladega, the NASCAR Cup Series will then roll into Talladega for the CampingWorld.com 500 at the Talladega Superspeedway a week later. Nothing really crazy happened between the two besides one incident where Logano would then, on a pit road sequence, cut in front of Matt Kenseth and basically brake check him going onto pit road, and this pretty much made Matt Kenseth a little bit angry. Let's just say that. They didn't have any other incidents throughout the rest of the race, but after this race, Logano went on to win the race again, despite of course, the boos and the dismay of not only the NASCAR fan base, but more than anything, probably more than likely Junior Nation at the end of that race as well. Matt Kenseth at this point was eliminated from title contention at the end of this race, being involved in yet again another wreck at the end of the race. So, of course, well, now let's go into the big finale, the race that we all remember. After that, the following week, then NASCAR would then roll into Martinsville for, well, the next race and the first race of the round of 8. And of course, you can already imagine I'm going into this without a script, so I'm just going to all of this just by the top of my head and just saying things, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. But other than that, let's get into the big gist of everything here on this one. So, pretty much nothing really egregious happens. There were some times where both Joey and Matt would basically get into each other just a little bit. Matt would give some bumps to Joey here and there, but the big part, though, comes with around 47 laps to go, I think it was, and on a restart, Brad Keselowski, a teammate of Joey Logano at that time, went and turned Matt Kenseth going down the back straightaway, and that untimely would take Kenseth out of race contention completely. This would then send Kenseth to the garage, and then would come right back out a good number of laps later, which then, of course, led to the infamous incident that we all remember.
And Kenseth cleared by Logano. Maybe no! Kenseth takes him out! Logano into the wall! Caution comes out and the crowd roars.
Going into pretty much turn 1 with around 47 laps to go, Matt Kenseth would then egregiously take out Joey Logano, and this literally sent Joey from the top of the playoff grid to the bottom. At this point, that was pretty much it. It was pretty much basically the end of Joey Logano's run going forward. And remember also, if you probably remember, this is the point in time where the playoffs were not structured like they are nowadays. So not only did this send Joey from the top of the grid to the bottom, this also meant that he pretty much was clear cut, probably going to be eliminated in general if he did not win. Remember, at this point, bonus points did not carry over. They didn't carry over from round to round like they do now. So this pretty much derailed Joey's chances at any point here unless he won the next 2 points-paying races. Obviously, Logano was furious, and rightfully so, after getting crashed, obviously just being taken out, after really not doing anything, especially in this race, to even warrant a payback. But at the same time, though, Matt Kenseth, on the other hand, pretty much felt like, I guess you could say, he avenged himself, I guess you could say. In the words of Dale Earnhardt Jr., didn't really want anybody reading his thoughts afterwards. Oh boy. But anyway, to even bring more into it, if you really want my thoughts specifically on this incident as a whole, it is really, I would say, very difficult for me to really choose either side. Because if you look at it from this way, from Matt Kenseth's standpoint, he had gotten spun out of the lead late in the race at Kansas, of course. I mean, well, I guess you could say kind of maybe deserved it a little bit because, yeah, you were blocking, but at the same time, the CEO of NASCAR, like I stated, the leader of the sport at the time, then said it was smart to crash you out, smart to wreck you. Okay, fine, I guess, I don't know, but that really wasn't the best choice of words to say. Then Joey Logano will then gets into him here and annoys him at Talladega, and of course, now I can understand that you're really starting to get a little angry. I mean, especially even flashback a few weeks ago at Charlotte, you had gotten basically crashed at that point, had to settle for a 42nd place finish, and then get wrecked the week after. So then there's that. But then jump over here to Martinsville, where then his teammate Brad Keselowski then wrecks you out of second place. So at that point, I would understand pretty much Matt Kenseth being upset, being not so happy, not being really pleased, not necessarily wholly with just Logano, but with Team Penske as a whole. But here's where I also will defend Joey some here too, because he didn't do anything wrong in the situation here to even really warrant getting crashed out here. It was really people around him that escalated the whole situation more often than not. If Brian France does not make those quintessential NASCAR comments, and if NASCAR does what they should have done, and I still don't understand why to this day that they did this, why they didn't do this, and sit the two of these guys down, especially even maybe after Talladega, or even before the whole race at Martinsville, or Brad Keselowski doesn't spin him here, nothing would have happened. All Logano really did was practically send Kenseth for a spin at Kansas, which I said earlier he was kind of right to do so, to a degree, and then get into him and annoy him a little bit at Talladega, and that's really about it. But then at Martinsville, he never really did anything to even warrant getting crashed out here. So in my humble opinion, Joey Logano did not deserve to be wrecked at Martinsville, especially for anything he was doing there. But at the exact same time though, Matt Kenseth in my eyes was fully justified in taking out not only a Team Penske affiliated driver, but also pretty much letting Joey know too that he didn't forget how he was raced at Kansas, and I guess you could say pretty much it was the best opportune time to dish out a payback. And it just sucks for Joey Logano though that he was the one who was leading. So yeah. I mean, here's one other thing too that I also kind of want to do. I want to also touch on the bases on this as well, because this is something that has grinded my gears for a good number of years now, and I really feel that I need to vent some frustrations on this one. So let's get into it, because the following week after all of this, NASCAR would then hand Matt Kenseth down an unprecedented penalty. Just a penalty so egregious, it's ridiculous. And still to this day, I still will never understand why they chose to do this. They then would suspend Matt Kenseth for the next 2 points-paying Cup Series races. They kind of just threw the book at him. Any Kenseth fan in my eyes would definitely agree with me on that one. I know they more than likely would. The fact that NASCAR then chose to suspend Matt Kenseth for 2 races because they knew they could get away with it is just mind-numbingly stupid, mind-bogglingly egregious, in my opinion, because they were faced with similar scenarios just a couple years prior to this. In 2011, Kyle Busch would intentionally wreck Ron Hornaday at the end of the Truck Series race, well, at the beginning of the Truck Series race at Texas Motor Speedway. Kyle Busch was suspended for the nationwide race that weekend and the Cup Series race, but if you look at the Cup Series in general, was only suspended for 1 race. That's it. 1 race. A 1-race deal. That is really it. Or if you want to look at it even a year later in 2012, where Jeff Gordon would intentionally wreck Clint Bowyer at the end of the season. Bowyer at this point was, at least from what I remember, third to second in points at that time, and that wreck would completely kick him from title contention completely. And oh yeah, Jeff Gordon was not suspended whatsoever. Oh no, we can't suspend Golden Boy Jeff Gordon. That would hurt the ratings, NASCAR would say. But NASCAR here in 2015, in a year where there were so many controversies, so many things, and the season had already become infamous for stuff like that already, and NASCAR being inconsistent with penalties and anything else, NASCAR then originally decided that they were going to penalize Matt Kenseth 2 races, just like I said, basically because they knew they could get away with it. Yes, I understand, Matt Kenseth is not a Jeff Gordon, he's not a Kyle Busch, he's not a Chase Elliott, he's not a Dale Earnhardt Jr., he's not selling tickets to races like those guys were, or ever have been, he's never been one of the more popular drivers. Matt Kenseth has always been one of the more underrated drivers that flies under the radar and has never always been talked about as much as the rest. But this kind of blatant misuse of power by NASCAR is just, oh my god, it is just one of the most ridiculous things I have ever had to endure as a NASCAR fan, especially in an incident, and especially during a time when the leadership was not as strong as it is now. Granted, it's still not as strong as it should be, but still. I don't even know, man. It's stuff like that. I mean, good God. I just feel for Matt Kenseth too, because then not only that, then yeah, not only does he get suspended for 2 races in 2015, but then even in 2017, later in the season, he literally runs into an ambulance that was just parked right where pit road was at Richmond the week before the freaking playoffs even started, and then he broke a freaking radiator after hitting the freaking ambulance, and then they put him on the 5-minute crash clock at the same time, and they can't repair a radiator in 5 minutes, and that almost knocked Kenseth out of the playoffs completely. And then not only that, then flash forward back to, well, of course, where else? Kansas. Then he gets kicked from the chase because one of his crew members then chose to work on the car, and it was like a 7th member that worked on the car during the red flag, which, yeah, you're not allowed to do that. I understand that. But then that disqualified Matt Kenseth completely from the race. And the car was repairable. It was able to, at least for the most part, get back out and continue to keep racing. And they disqualify him. They DQ him for that. Now I can understand why Matt Kenseth chose to pretty much retire at the end of that season, and I can't say I blame him. But other than that, those are my thoughts on the Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano situation from 2015. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I have another video that I will touch on, and will be, probably more than anything, it will be an in-depth video. The first in-depth video that I have ever produced, and hopefully it turns out pretty well. It is one video that I've been wanting to make for so long that I'm surprised nobody has made a video on this, at least I don't think so, at all, since this race and since 2014. You probably know where I'm going with this. It is Brad Keselowski's infamous night during the 2014 Bank of America 500 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Oh boy, do I have a lot to say about that incident, because I remember it very, very vividly, and all the controversy that Brad Keselowski got himself into in just one night. Quite honestly, I think it is the most infamous night of his entire career. So I will be making a video on that, and will hopefully be able to have that out soon, and cannot wait to do that one. I'm excited to do that one. But until that video is done, until I'm able to do that video, peace out. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe for more. See you guys soon. Leave your comments down below. Let's talk about it. Peace out, guys.